Hello and welcome to the show. I am your host, Terry Ann Russell of the Sacred Wellness Podcast. Each episode is a journey of self-discovery featuring insightful conversations, healing practices, and wisdom to help you align with your soul's purpose. A big shout out to my listeners in Ireland. They're still holding strong, listening in, and Oregon is catching up. So thanks for listening. Your support means so much to me. Today I have Jessica on the show. Hi, Jessica. Thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you too. It took us a while to catch up and to do this, so I'm glad it's finally happening. Jessica has been on a journey of self-discovery and healing. She's a cancer survivor, writer, and outdoor blogger. When she finished treatment, she decided how she would engage with life, especially the outdoors. This is something that's played a huge role in my healing as I've gone on my journey. So I have to say, I'm so happy that you're talking about it and that you're sharing it because I think it's so important for people to understand that healing is not always just, looking at those emotions or what's coming up for you or, meditation or whatever it is for you. But it is also about engaging in this physical life that we live. And a lot of the show that I talk about today with Sacred Wellness is the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Healing's played a critical role in navigating you through this difficult journey and in my journey as well. It's been a ebb and flow of, ups and downs in my life. Can you share a little bit about your journey, how you navigated this journey, and what healing looked like for you?
Sure. So, first off, I mean, does anybody ever expect to be diagnosed with cancer or one of these? Like, it's the thing that happens to other people, right? So, that's always like a shock and being able to just process that. I fully did the crying, the why me, and I'm not making light of this. I'm just, that is how I approached it. Like, okay, I'm having all these feelings. I'm going to feel them right now. I'm going to get them all out in this kind of very fast, raw way. And then I'm going to, get to work. For me, that was shifting my mindset from like, well, we're here now. Where do we go from here? And I am a believer about healing from Jesus and all that stuff. So I definitely focused in on that.
Mhm.
Um, and then I was staying at my parents' house. We were full-time RVers at the time, and it was 2020, and we had actually decided just to like take a little break there before we went to the other next place. And then the pandemic happened, so then we got stuck there, and then I was diagnosed with cancer.
Mm.
So I was stuck there, but the good thing about being there was it was 5 acres of mostly wooded area here in Florida, and wildlife was constantly going through there. And I would sit outside, or even when I sat inside, I would sit next to a window just so I could see the tree line because, turkeys would come by, rabbits. There were hawks that were out there hunting. So it was never a dull moment, really. And
Yeah.
having that spiritual connection and then that other connection of experiencing nature and life in a different way, that really helped me get through. And when I was feeling up to it, they had a really long driveway
Mhm.
that had this beautiful like tree canopy. And I would just like walk down that and up and, watch the light filter through the leaves. Like it was just, it was a horrible time, but it was a really beautiful place to go through it.
Yeah. I can totally resonate with that. So after I lost my son in 2019, we started homeschooling my daughter, who was 9 at the time. And we bought an RV, sold our business, everything we owned, and we traveled the country. And so, what you're talking about is truly what helped me heal through the worst time of my life because I was able to be free. I was able to visit various different places for what I needed at the time, whether it was the water. Sometimes I needed to be in the forest, and so navigating that journey, a lot of what you talk about speaks to me being with the trees and just understanding that we have this true connection with everything that's around us. And we often forget about that. And I think the pandemic played a huge role in that for people. They started to see that, maybe it wasn't all about just, the 9 to 5 and the hustle and bustle, but it was more about, anchoring in and connecting with ourselves. Can you talk a little bit about how that journey sort of evolved and changed into what you do today?
Yeah, so, I was eagerly awaiting being done with chemo and, going back to my regular life, right? I really just thought that the day my doctor was like, all right, you're done, that I'd be like, woohoo, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna go hiking and I'm gonna do all these things. And, I was asking the doctor, like, when will I get back like to normal? And he was like, 6 months. So I'm like, okay. So I put down like the date, right? And I made a list of all the things I was gonna do. And then that date came and went. And I was still weak and in pain and just unable. Like mentally, I felt like I was ready. And there were times when I was like, I can do this, and I would try to do something physical and I would just like have to sit down and rest. And it was hard. Um, there was a fear that like I was never going to be the same again physically. And in a way, I'm not. And in many ways, um, I'm stronger physically because I did hire a trainer. And I was determined to hike, and my husband and I and my kids, we would go hiking and, um, but it became less about like, all right, it says it's 5 miles. We're going to do the 5 miles. We're going to get to like the scenic overlook and then go back and we're going to have great time, as in we made great time. Like
Right.
we were fast, not like have a fun time, but an efficient time to check off that box.
Right.
And it became just really feeling alive and experiencing the life around me. And, it's 5 years now that I've post chemo and I'm still doing that. I'm not even when I see whatever, I don't even look at the distance anymore. I'm just like, let's take that path and see what happens. And actually, there's a local environmental center near where I live, and they do some guided hikes. And they did one on forest bathing. And I was like, what in the world is forest bathing? And I was reading it, and I was like, that sounds kind of like something I might be interested in. So I signed up for it. And I realized I was already sort of doing that a little bit, but I started doing it even more. Like this time I was um, aware of what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now when I go out with people, we do a little bit of forest bathing. So we're stopping and like, we're looking at the leaves and touching them and feeling the texture and smelling them. We're not eating anything unless we have a guide with
Right.
us. I've the same place that I was introduced to that concept. I now will take off my shoes in certain parts of it just so I can feel like the sand between my toes. And it's just become a completely different experience, more meditative than physical challenge. Although, it's combined, I'm
Right.
still, you know, walking and doing things, but it's also about my mindset.
Yeah.
And, for me, it's also a spiritual connection. Since I believe, all these things were created. So, it's all interconnected and has been really just peaceful and healing for me to just be able to do that. Mm.
Yeah. And that's a lot of what my show touches upon because so often I am very type A. I've been very type A, even though I'm very intuitive, right? So I have both sides, but I could get caught up in my type A-ness if I let myself. And often I was just like you, we're going to go out, we're going to do this many miles, this is where we're going. And I have a focused goal in mind, which is great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's when you just get caught up in that. But I love that you shared how using all your senses, smelling. tasting if you can, really taking your shoes off and digging your feet into the sand and the dirt, and feeling what God created before us, because we do get caught up. And if you are like us, type A, you're more focused on the destination rather than the journey. And the journey is where all the good stuff is, right? I said all the sweet stuff is in the middle. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we find our way through that. But I think a lot of that is due to the fact that here we are, we're able to talk like this and do these shows. And with social media and phones, we are so disconnected from the actual physical life that we forget that we're part of this experience, right? I can't tell you how many people I see walking with their phones, and they're down in the forest, when we go up north where there's lots of pine trees, and they're looking at their phones and they're typing in their stuff and they're talking. And I'm like, people, do you not see this around you? Like, now I know that. Back then I would have been like, no, let's go.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a challenge for me because I am somebody that's posting on social media, and I've got the blog that I need content for. So,
Mhm.
finding that balance of like, okay, I'm going to capture these moments here and then I'm putting my phone away, or like this outing is for me. It's not for Instagram. So just finding that, because I really struggled at first with that too, when I decided that I was going to share all of this, because before, back in 2020, I already had like a blog and a social media presence all about RV life. Um, and I shared some of my cancer journey there. And then when I was kind of like coming out of everything, I sort of tried to revitalize it and kind of steer it away from it. It used to be called Exploring the Local Life. So I was like, well, you know what? I'm still exploring the local life. It's just not in an RV anymore.
Right.
But it just didn't feel right. And I stopped everything. Um, and I was like, I'm just going to live like a quiet life. And that lasted for a year before I was like, I can't. Like, I really felt like it was something I needed to share. And I think part of the thing also was that the way I had conducted that brand and business was a lot of hustling and a lot of, it wasn't great. The content that I was producing was good, but like what it was doing to me, I guess, was not great. So to launch a new one, I've been very careful about remembering rest, remembering why I'm doing what I'm doing. Um, yeah, it's been a journey. That has also been a journey for me. So
Yeah. No, I get it. Like being really intentional with your day. Um, we can get caught up sometimes just in the physical, right? We're a mom, a wife, so there's actual stuff that needs to be done around the house, right? Often, we we do for everybody else, and we're last. And that's so the opposite way of how it's supposed to be, I feel, because I feel like we have this deep spiritual connection. Often we forget about it, and we just get caught up in this physical aspect of it. But I think when you're intentional with your life and you say, hey, today I'm going to work on the physical, tomorrow I'm going to work on the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and tie that in all together, I know for me and my clients that when you can find that balance in all of those spaces, and it doesn't have to be the same every day. People say, what do you do? And I'm like, it's different every day. Like, I don't have a set schedule about what I do. I just go and I do. Like today I need Reiki. Okay, I'm going to do Reiki. Or tomorrow may need to be outside and just be in the trees and smell, so it varies for everybody. And I say you just have to find your own way. What makes you happy in those spaces? Maybe it's working out for you, so it's very different. But I want to talk a little bit about your spiritual connection. And did you feel, because I know for me, I was very guided by God. And I talk about this often because I think that's another piece where people are sort of forgetting, right? We receive this guidance or these thoughts. Oh, I should go on the road. My husband thought I was crazy. We just bought a business and built a house. And I'm like, here we are. We're going to move to Sedona and, we're going to buy another business, but then we're going to sell it in a year. But I was getting this guidance. It was like God talking to me. Okay. After Anne's death, it's like, you've got to go and you've got to be somewhere else because you can't be here. And so being in that space, for his like, are you crazy? Like, but I felt it so intently within me that I knew it was the right thing. Did you ever have moments where you really felt guided to do what you were doing?
Um, yes, I did. I mean, I think for me, I knew like I needed to really grab onto my faith, live my faith. I'm not really sure how to deepen it. Like these were things that I already knew, like I knew them here, like I'd been taught these things for many years, but to actually put it into practice, like, yeah, okay, I have the flu. Not, I mean, I know the flu can be very severe and could, people can die from it. So I'm not making light of that, but like I would have like a cold type of thing and I would, like, oh, in the name of Jesus, I am healed. I know I'm healed and, move on. But then it's something like cancer. Like that's very death adjacent,
Right.
and just like hanging on to those truths that I knew and like keeping them just in the forefront. Like, you know, um, and my husband actually reached out to a family friend of ours about my diagnosis. And I was like, don't do it, And I'm so glad he did because in the mail, just a few days later, a big care package came for me with like books and study guides and a letter. And she sent me a video of a pastor that was very much about healing. And that's what he was teaching on. And I would listen to that. And so I guess I was doing a lot of working at my faith, but it gave me also like I was working to remind myself like constantly like of the promises, and then I would be able to rest in that,
Right.
if that makes any sense. So it became a point where I didn't have to always be turning to like the piece of paper where I had written out the scriptures.
Right.
I didn't necessarily have to, it would just sort of like automatically happen. I was already in that mindset. And, it was great when saying it was great when that happened, but it was really just freeing when that sort of happened, that transition from like working to keep it at the forefront to it just like being and being able to rest in that. And then I was able to show up for other people. Like,
Mhm.
I would go to the chemo infusion room and there would be other people there. And, I don't know, bring joy as much as I could,
Yeah.
talking to people. Sometimes if I felt led to, I would, ask somebody like, hey, would you like prayer? Is that something that you're interested in? I had a book with me that I carried around all the time that was about healing.
Hmm.
And I gave it to somebody. I was like, hi, I don't know but I feel like I should give this to you. So it became less about me, and it became more of a way to hopefully encourage people hope, or I don't know. And it was something that I struggled with. I told my father this because I was telling him, like, sometimes I'm in the infusion room and I'm watching something funny and I laugh or I'm smiling or, like I'm chipper. And I was like, is that being like disrespectful to other people and whatever? And told me about a story where he was feeling depressed and upset about something. And I don't know, he saw a guy like without legs, like on a skateboard,
Hmm.
and he was smiling and he was like, hey, have a great day, and being joyful. And it like helped my dad move away from that.
Yeah.
And so that was like, my hope too, that I was like helping other people in that. I don't know if I answered your question. Did a
Yes,
little bit of a meandering there, but like, I don't know, it just became a way for me to connect with other people too.
yeah, and often we don't know why we're being led to something. We don't always receive that, right? But it's just like, oh, I thought you may need this, or I thought you may need a smile or a hug today, whatever it is. I think because a lot of what I talk about, and especially with the connection with God, when Anthony died, I was angry at God. I didn't want any part. But what I found through my journey now, I'm 6 years out as a grieving mother, and what I found on my journey is my experience what changed me exponentially, right? I couldn't be the same person that I was before because now I have this deepening experience. And what I share with other people is often we get a diagnosis or, we have a loved one that passes. Many things happen in our life. We go through divorce or changes and life doesn't stay the same. So we get caught sometimes in what that is and we can't dig ourselves out. And I think it's so important for people like you to share your story and to connect with people. Maybe they're in the beginning of it. I mean, I know I had a sick child. She was born sick. I had her when I was 40 and it changed my life. I wasn't the same person I was before that. Like I took life for granted. And so, life changes and it's meant to change, I guess is my point. I want to talk a little bit about how you help others now on the outside, helping them feel more connected, helping them feel more restored through this experience, right? Because it isn't just about being outside, it's actual going within, right? We're not only looking at what that is now and we're all looking for different things, but we can find it the same way. So how do you help them just sort of move through that and find that connection they're looking for?
I think the biggest thing is I just share my story, and I also share, myself out in places like, hey, I went from somebody who thought paddleboarding was just stupid and a great way to embarrass yourself. Oh, and a great way to get eaten by alligators to somebody that like, I mean, for example, it's today, Friday. On Wednesday, I paddleboarded with my family. And right at the beginning of our adventure, I was like, everyone has to stop. There's a gigantic alligator blocking the entire spring run we're supposed to be going through. So, I mean, the good news is that like it was a clear um spring run, so you could see like through the bottom. You could definitely see that there was an alligator there, and the water was like this deep. So we were able to literally just put our little feet down and stop our boards and patiently wait for the alligator to decide that it was done being there, and pass. And I didn't freak out. I was just like, you guys see it? There it is. All right, we have to stay here. We're going to be respectful and mindful of it. When people were, there were other people approaching. I'm like, hey, just letting you know, there's an alligator right there. We cannot go past it.
Right.
It's blocking everything. And we all waited, and then we saw it. Let's started moving off into the darker water, which then I also did a friendly reminder PSA to my family. This is why we're going to stay out of the darker water out here. We're going to let the alligators have their dark water. We get to have the nice, clear spring water. And it's just become a peaceful and amazing time out there. And I've shared that. I've shared, being like having little sleep the night before, going in fresh water in Florida, and, having visions of alligators everywhere and not knowing how to handle it, to getting out there and loving it and just being very transparent about
Yeah.
that. And then I do share here and there about my cancer journey, um, and the emotions around that. I mean, you know, I never went into a dark place, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't hard, that I had to really work to get to that place of peace
Yeah.
and of hope. Um, so I try not to sugarcoat anything, but I do show up in a positive way. just to hopefully inspire people to get out there and, some people make it out okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love what you're doing. It's been a deeply moving conversation today. Can you tell us where my listeners can find you, connect with you?
Sure. So I have a blog. It's called Walk and Paddle. And then all my social media handles, I've got Facebook, Instagram, and I'm starting to have a baby TikTok. And that's all Walk and Paddle. And I also have some freebies at walkandpaddle.com/free. So those are like some checklists. I've got some coloring sheets there. It does sign them up for my email list, but my email list is very much a conversation like this, just
Okay,
in somebody's inbox. So
awesome.
yeah,
Well, thank you. I'll share that in the description of the show today.
yes.
And
Oh,
I just want to, oh,
I
go
forgot
ahead.
one last thing. I also have a Florida State Park activity book that I forgot because I just launched it. And that's something that people can download on and use on their phones or print at home. And it's, has like a meditative gratitude before you go to the parks. It has like a journal sheet where you can just write like what you loved about the park. And then it has some other fun activities like word searches and a place you can do a
Mhm.
haiku and just things to make that visit, I don't know, very personal.
Yeah.
So to have that type of connection with a place. So
Yeah, I love that. I'll definitely add that to the description.
thank you.
It's my hope that everyone listening today is reminded that healing isn't always about, you know, recovery. It's about rediscovering who we are, who we lost ourselves along the way. As I said, and I'll say it again, we get so caught up in day-to-day life that we forget to actually live this life. And so people like you, I'm so grateful that you're out there sharing your story and creating these programs for people to connect with. I love the activity guide, and I'll share the link for that today too. So thank you. Until next time, thank you for listening to us today. I am Terry Ann Russell, and trust that your journey is helping you rediscover yourself. Thank you.